Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, hosted by myself, Chris. I'm the Business Development Manager here at JTF Marketing, and I've got my colleague Paddy as well on the call. So he's a senior marketing automation consultant with ourselves here. Today we're going to go through managing database hygiene. So it's a really hot topic within Marketo. We're going to go through a couple of tips and tricks, a couple of rules, things that we like to implement. Hopefully you'll find it really, really useful. We'll have a bit of time for some Q&A at the end as well. So if there's any questions that pop up, feel free to pop them into the chat. Myself and Paddy will go through and we'll answer them at the end. So just a little bit about JTF Marketing to kick us off. So we are a marketing automation specialist company who specialize in Marketo. We're a global team, lots and lots of consultants based around the world, as well as myself and a few other support staff who make it work. We've got a lot of successful customers, a lot of positive successes, and are an Adobe Bronze partner as well. We like to live by three different words, which is empowering automation. We like to do more, and we like to love the challenge. So there's no Marketo challenge that we haven't been able to solve. Paddy is one of our senior consultants. He works with many different customers. Marketo Engage certified expert, so good load of knowledge in there, and he's going to cover through some key points around data hygiene. So we're going to talk today about poor quality data. We're going to talk about dirty data, how to monitor data hygiene and how to monitor database health. And what we all want to know is how to clean up some of that data quickly and easily. So Paddy, over to you for what everyone really wants to hear, which is some of those key points about data hygiene.
Great, thank you very much. Sorry, I couldn't get my slides moving there for anybody, for everybody watching there. My mouse wasn't wanting to connect. So yeah, as Chris mentioned, yeah, so that's me. That lovely new headshot that you may see kicking around for any of our customers. So I do try, you know. So yeah, as mentioned, what we're gonna try and cover today, and it's important to note that we will have a Q&A at the end. So if there's anything that you're thinking isn't on this list, throw it in the Q&A box, and we'll try and add it to the list. So a little bit about data hygiene, what it is. When we say data hygiene, it's a bit of a buzzword. But what actually do we mean when we talk data hygiene, and what processes can we put in place to try and enhance our data hygiene? What does poor quality data look like? How can you spot it? And how it might be affecting you? So we've got on the very top one there, how it can potentially be preventing you from seeing your marketing successes. We all know how important reporting is across the board for marketeers. And if you've got dirty hygiene making your successes look less successful, nobody wants that. We all want to, paint the right picture to the right people, and data is a really important piece of that puzzle. License fees, very important. We all struggle with our license fee. Anybody I'm assuming most people on the call here work day in, day out with Marketo Engage, in which case you'll know that you can't easily see the number of records that you're allowed within your instance. You've got to find it within your contract and your agreement. That nicely hidden piece of information is actually very important. And we'll often have the Marketo teams knocking on our doors and saying, you've gone over your allowance. And we don't want to be going over that allowance with dirty data, with data that doesn't necessarily need to be there. Some of the things that we can put in place, we'll cover. We've got some rules later on in the slides, and they're almost kind of campaigns and programs that we can put in place to try and mitigate dirty data in our instances, and then how we can monitor it moving forward. That classic kind of quote of what gets measured gets improved. If you can't see how much dirty data or how clean your data is within your instance, you're never going to improve it. And then, as I mentioned before, don't forget, if you do have any questions, throw them in the Q&A. If we can't answer them at the end because I've blabbered on too much, then we'll take them offline and we'll make sure that your question gets answered. Okay, so the impact of poor data quality. So the first thing in there, lack of personalization, is really interesting, and it kind of leads into a couple of the pieces there. So poor lead quality, inaccurate lead scoring. Data is the crux of everything in Marketo and marketing automation as a whole. If you don't have the right data points or they're not filled in, then how can you empower yourself and everyone else that's working within your instance to mobilize the campaigns that we need to mobilize? We often have conversations around customer journeys, revenue models, and lead scoring, things like that, where we say, what is the data point that is powering this action? Whatever that action is that we want to take, those flow steps within Marketo, what is the piece of data that powers that? What is the smart list criteria? And often it's harder than you would imagine to put your finger on that piece of data, because maybe it doesn't appear in Marketo, or maybe it's something that exists in our CRM, but we're not transferring it into Marketo. Maybe we're just not capturing it. So we've really got to think through all the way from square one. What do we want to personalize? How do we want lead scoring to work? What do we want that revenue model to look like? And make sure that the data, which is the foundation of everything, covers all those bases. Of course, we can work retrospectively and try and fill in some of those missing pieces, but without the data, we can't mobilize the campaigns that we want to mobilize. Split lead intelligence. So this links to that reporting conversation. If there's two versions of me in your instance, how do you know which one is the right one? If one of them is a high performing version of me and one of them is a low performing, I know which one I'd want to take, but which one's accurate is always an interesting question. Poor lead quality is really interesting. So, you know, what we often end up with along that customer journey or that revenue model that we build is at some point we want to hand over these qualified leads to people that are going to start having a conversation. We don't want to be handing over poor quality leads. So he's a great lead. This lead is scored really highly, but we don't have a name for them. It's really difficult to then pick up a conversation. And then bloated database, as we mentioned before, that license fee is always looming over us. So how can we maximize that? The last thing we want to do is have 40% of a record count in our Marketo instance be people who are, maybe their emails are bouncing, or maybe they've unsubscribed, is the common one. We don't want to be paying for all those people to just sat there that we can't market to. So tips for managing that license fee. Yeah, but marketing budget cuts. It's always a worrying thought. We always want the money because we want to use the money. We want to speculate to accumulate, but we've got to prove why we need it. And having the right people in your instance of Marketo Engage is always the first place that I fall back to is, we're paying for all these really valuable leads to be sat here and we're actively marketing to them. Not many people can say that that's not a positive thing to be doing. So remove inactive and unengaged people, and there's almost two elements to that. There's removing unsubscribed people, which is really important because we can't contact them anyway. And then there's this element here of removing inactive people or unengaged people. So they're almost people that we physically can market to, but the question is, should we? Are they the right people? Because we've got to be ruthless. I used an analogy with someone not too long ago that I got married a couple of years back now, and if anybody that's organized a wedding on the call, you'll know that you'll have a conversation with your other half about who is important enough to warrant a seat at the wedding, because it's not cheap to have people there. And I kind of said, treat your Marketo Engage like that. Not quite as important, but very similar in that, are you worthy of a seat? Are you worthy of us paying for you to be there? And are you kind of offering a return on investment? And if not, be ruthless and cull them, essentially. Define custom synchronization rules. So you can have people that exist in one place and not another, or at least certain data points that exist in one place and not another. So you might have people in your CRM who you don't want to funnel through into Marketo because you still want to know who they are and what they're doing, but you're just not they're not engaging. So maybe they stay in the CRM, but we don't actively market to them. You might also have certain data points. So there'll be some data points that are important to know, but actually for Marketo Engage, we're not using them. So again, be ruthless with your data points. If you're not actually going to take an action based on that data point, then ask yourself, why is it there? Analyze your wins and losses. You know, going back to the sentiment from before of how do you report on the right things? How do you know where you should be focusing your attention? You need to know opportunities won, opportunities lost, who has been added into your Marketo Engage instance and is engaging. What are they engaging with? You need to know all that information so that you can pass, as I said previously, the right people through to the sales teams, ideally, to spark up the right conversations. And then this is where we talk about some of those rules that we can put in place. So there are many, but we've just pulled a few out that we think are particularly important. So this one here around kind of data management programs. So this example here that you can see on the right, and what we suggest is to create a suite of data management programs. There's quite a large number of programs that we suggest, and they include things like bounced records or suppressing people for a certain length of time. Could be unsubscribes, as is the most kind of common conversation around this. It could be dirty data. So you could have, say, a data field that gets updated incorrectly. You always want to map that field that's maybe not correct to a correct field, but it happens a lot. So set up a program and just have it work for you in the background. So what we're saying here is create that suite and house those data rules within a program. And ideally a single program or a single folder, however works best for your instance. But you want to have one place to go to find where all of your data hygiene programs and campaigns are living and manage them. So going back to that reporting conversation, you want to be able to go and see who's a member of this campaign, who's flowing through this particular flow action, etc. Duplicates, so always a fun topic. And there's a couple of ways of cleaning up duplicates. One of them, the first one, is the manual option. And I can tell you from experience that it's not fun. So if you've got a lot of records in your instance, hundreds of thousands of records, you've probably got quite a few duplicates in there. And you don't want to work through one by one, saying this person and this person are the same, so let's merge them. You want to use a tool in an ideal world. So we have a tool. We have a tool called Arrow Merge that we can maybe touch on a little bit later on. And what this basically does is it pulls out all your data through the API. It does a bit of kind of trickery and understands who are the duplicates. What information do we want to take as a lead record? So you might say the most recently updated, for instance. That's the most common logic. So the most recently updated version of me is the true me. You can get even cleverer beyond that logic, and you can go field by field, and you can say maybe the highest value on a certain field is the true value. Obviously, you would do things like if the first name isn't present on one but is present on the other, we'll have the one that's present. So you can get quite complicated, or you can do, quite a simple out the box, merge all my records, and you'd be surprised how big a difference it makes. People, if you on this call and you're thinking, actually, I'm not sure how many duplicates I have in my instance, I would encourage you to go and dig into it. There's a global smart list already sat in there called possible duplicates. Just have a quick look at it, open it up, and you may be surprised with the number that are in there. And if it's low, then well done, you're doing something right. CRM is deleted. So I think I mentioned this earlier about you can have people that exist in one place. Maybe you have people that exist in your CRM, that we don't necessarily filter through into Marketo. So what we're saying here is typically that CRM is the kind of golden records, is the source of truth, I call it. So we want that CRM to be 100%, but we can move people in and out of Marketo as we see fit, as long as we keep that source of truth correct. So there's triggers within Marketo that can say delete people from Marketo, and then you can choose, do you want to delete them from the CRM as well, or do you want to keep them in the CRM? There's a resource down the bottom of that's probably worth having a little read through. And there's quite a few different rules that we can set in place to dictate where we want people to live and at what point we want to remove them. Blocklisted. So blocklisted records, we're saying there, not only impact the quality of data, but ongoing deliverability. So one thing you want to be really careful about is messaging people, and blocklisted is almost one logic. You've also got the thought around email bounces. So you can be emailing somebody and that email is bouncing back every single time. And you're only going to impact your deliverability rates. And going back to that earlier conversation around, we want to be painting the right picture to the right people, because we're all fighting for budget in this industry, in this world. So we want to be painting the right pictures. And in order to do that, the last thing you want to do is cloud your deliverability metrics by sending to the wrong people. And there's an obvious legal conversation to be had there. Obviously, it differs across the world. So you need to try and understand what that looks like within your particular region. But things like double opt-ins and having the right preference center set up are all really important, and they all link back to this logic of data hygiene. Preference centers is something that you can dig into again on our site, or have conversations with either myself or Chris, because it's something that we implement quite regularly, and it makes a huge impact when it comes to deliverability. If you give people the option to choose what they want, what they receive, then they're often a lot more likely to engage with it. Left company. So this one's regularly forgotten about. So somebody leaves the business and we just continue to message them. And in the kind of B2B space, people's email address change constantly, less so in B2C world, where it's often a personal email address. How do we track that logic of, you leave a business and you're the same person, but you've now got a different business address? The other thing kind of around that left company, but not kind of on a slightly separate thread, is that that person still exists. That person may have gone from being within the marketing team of company A to being within the marketing team of company B, and actually you still want to be having similar conversations, or they may have been promoted. They may have had almost a promotion within another company, and maybe they've got a different buying power now, and maybe want to talk to them slightly differently. So there's definitely this conversation around left company that we want to be clear on, that current kind of person doesn't exist, but they do exist in a slightly different guise over here. So how do we manage that process? And it's really important to think that through on a kind of case-by-case basis. So then just quickly touching here on visibility. So how can you gain a level of visibility on data hygiene? It's quite difficult to do. So if you were to implement some of those rules, and you were to implement a nice suite of data hygiene programs that managed your data effectively, you would have the ability in those instances to dig into those campaigns. So look at the members, understand how many people are flowing through those campaigns, how many people you are removing from your instance, how many people you're deleting, how many bounce emails you're seeing, how many soft bounces versus hard bounces, etc. So there is a level of understanding within a Marketo instance itself. The second option, and the options that we would always lean to, is something like a data hygiene report. So we offer this data hygiene report. Chris, I don't know whether you want to kind of elaborate a little on what that looks like and maybe how people can kind of get in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Paddy. So yeah, our emerge is I say a simple. It's simple on the front end for users, but yeah, obviously requiring quite a lot of complex back end work that pulls it all together into a nice kind of visible kind of where you are live in terms of your data hygiene. If you do want to have any kind of conversations around our emerge, please feel free to get in touch. Some our data and contact details are going to be at the end of this webinar. So yeah, please let us know. We've also, on the next slide, we've got there it is, like magic, a free data hygiene report. So we'll leave this slide on the screen. So if anyone wants to give that a quick scan with their camera, you're more than welcome. It'll take you to the appropriate link. You can request us to get in touch then around your, around auditing your instance. So that's obviously free. Just feel free to have a dig around with that, and we'll be more than happy to help with that. Thank you everyone for joining today. Really appreciate it. Hopefully you found it really useful. Feel free to reach out to us if you've got any further questions. Be great to hear from you, great to hear any feedback, and hopefully you can join us in 2 weeks' time for our next webinar, which, as mentioned, will be on forms. So thank you everyone. Hopefully we'll catch you again soon.
Thank you.
Goodbye.